Hello everyone, welcome to my very first YouTube video. Today I'm going to be ranking the bladers of Beyblade Burst. There are 64 main bladers in total, however there are 3 rules I have to this criteria. A blader is determined stronger than the other blader depending on how much they battle. System power doesn't matter as lower systems have been higher. And the feat consists of battle IQ, and to prevent characters from being higher or lower is being lucky or unlucky. The first example of the first rule I have to this is rivals. For example, Volt and Chew. They are the biggest rivals in the entire show. They have battled multiple times. However, just because one has toppled the other does not mean no. This will automatically mean that they are better than the other because of consistency. The next feat, the next rule I have for each criteria is the system power mattering. Just because a blader has a lower system than the opponent doesn't mean they are the strongest. That doesn't mean that they're weaker. For example, when Silas and Kurt faced Volt in Beyblade Burst Turbo, they were using Evolution Bays, while Volt was using a Turbo Bay, and they gave him a good run for his money. Now, for the third rule to this is battle IQ. So this is basically how smart a blader is in battle, and this also helps them from being higher or lower, whether they are lucky or unlucky. Now, there is also 5 tiers I'll be doing with this, which is just your average tier list, which is S, the A, B, C, or D. We're going from worst to best, so let's get started. Coming in at the bottom of D tier, at dead last, we have Yugo Nansui. Now, he has no moves at all to start off with. He's the only one to not use any, and he has lost every single match except for an NPC blader. So, his only losses are Volt, Ken, Daigo, Warrior, and Shu, and they're still pretty early to mid season of the show, or season 1 at least. Now, after that is Hoji Konda. He is pretty strong for season 1 standards, but if we're looking at him as a whole, he doesn't really have too many feats. Although he's beaten Daigo, he has lost to Walkia, only barely though. He's lost to Zack, which is a Supreme 4 member. He's lost to Shu and Volt, not once, but twice to Volt, and he's only beaten Unknown Bladers. Now, right after that, we have Naoki Minamo. His only win is against Volt, and even then, that was right before the national tournament, and he was unlucky considering Volt was his first opponent in that round. And he lost straight after the nationals again. Now, right after that, we have Jin. He was able to get a point on Shu, but that's really his only feat. He does have a win or two on his belt, so he's also pretty strong to get to nationals. It was just unfortunate he was up against a Supreme 4 member that early in the tournament. Now, coming in after Jin, we have Ukibuki. He's a decently strong blader. He was able to defeat Daigo and Rentaro in his debut, and he put up a pretty good fight against Ken and Bolt. However, he later loses to Daigo as he wasn't expecting the strategy that he did, which was to flip the launch at the last second to get a better attack on him. After that, we have Orochi. Orochi is well respected by one of the Supreme 4 members, being Zack. He is a strong enough blader as he sort of challenged you in the first arc of the show, as he did lose to him 3-0, However, he did almost burst Bryson at that time, and he was the very first person to properly do so around then. His only other win is against Zach, but he was distracted, and it wasn't enough to make it to nationals. He even lost to Volt and Gabe in the team battles, and Volt was in the district tournament. Now, after that, we have Pagan, our first Season 3 Blader Turbo. He also has almost no wins besides Iger, as that was only his introduction. Other than that, he doesn't really have too many feats. These bladers are the bottom of the barrel, as he's also tardy in Suo. He's lost to Xavier, Renjiro, and Fire in the Battle Royale. He lost to Iger in the semis of the Lawn Cup, and he also lost in the big Battle Royale of the Battle Cruise, and he came last in that tournament as well. Now, after that, we have Errol Oxford. He only has 2 battles. His first one is against Renjiro, which isn't too much of a feat at that time, as he does beat him pretty easily, but he loses to Iger right after, as he gets destroyed by his Dark Power. After that, we have Kurt Nightfall. Again, not too much of a feat. He copied Hyde's ability, which is impressive. However, it's still not enough. He only got a ring out finish on him. Iger again had his Dark Power at the time against him. After that, we have Blint. He isn't too weak. He is a Risen 3 member, so he's definitely strong to an extent. However, he was just unlucky that he faced Dante and Dota only, as they are the 2 powerhouses of that season besides Volt and Iger. After that, we have Vimia. He is also pretty weak, but for Season 4 standards, he's sort of in the top 6 or 7 at least, I'd say. But he does have quite a few wins out of the 7 battles he has, which is Dante, Armen, and 2 unnamed bladers. However, he does put up a decent fight against Armen and Loden. But his last battle is against Delta, and we don't see him battle after that. Now, coming in C tier, we have Kyle. This guy is at the bottom. Although he is able to make the Basher Cruise, he wasn't the strongest, but as he stated himself, he wasn't showing his true power. So his only proper win is against Iger and a Battle Royale with Xavier against Renjiro, and also Suo and Renjiro. Two out of 3 of those battles were against a teammate who was weak and with a Turbo 4 blader, which again is held to a higher standard in Season 3. After that, we have Ben. He's pretty strong for Season 1 standards, however, he loses quite a bit. His only actual win is, I'm pretty sure, is against Ken. Let me double check. Yes, it is. And it's 2 unknown bladers after that. But yes, he loses to Ken as well, and Volt and Louis very quickly. So he has a crazy fall off. Now, after Ben, we have Quan. Quan is decently strong in Season 1. He was able to put a pretty good fight against Xander, although he does lose to him. It was still pretty close, and that was after he lost to Volt, as Volt was still the wild card of the tournament. But his only actual win is against Volt, and that was very early in the team battles in the later arcs of Season 1. After that, we have Cleo. Cleo Delon is a decent blader at best for Season 2 standards, but he's definitely not the strongest. I'd say his only actual win is against Daigo and another random NPC from the Raging Bulls and Cruiser. However, it's still decently early in the show for when he battles. His last battle was against Norman, and that was a whole prank on him to defeat Cruiser. After Cleo, we have Gotham. Gotham is okay. He's not too strong, but he could be better. As I was surprised he didn't make it to the International Players Cup. However, he does lose to Silas once out of 3 battles, so his only win is Silas. However, he does beat Volt as well, even though Volt makes a comeback in the match after that. Next, we have Norman Tarver. He is pretty good in Season 2. He's able to beat 4 Bladers in a row, sort of. He beats Cleo, Boa, and Cruiser each match. And he doesn't lose until Volt evolves his Bay and is able to have control of it. Now, after that, we have Cruiser. The reason Cruiser's above Norman, even though he lost to him, is because he was able to beat Kurt while Norman couldn't. And Cruiser's only actual win, besides Kurt, is Volt very early in the show, and his clone, which isn't too much of a feat, as everyone else beat him besides Walker and Taro, but I digress. After that, we have Renwu's son. Renwu got no wins in the Raiders Cup. However, he did beat Cruiser, Volt, and Rentaro in a Battle Royale in his introduction, and Cruiser again in his next match. However, after he lost to Volt, he kept losing all his matches. After that, we have Joshua. Joshua was actually on a pretty good winning streak until he lost to Free and Volt, as the way he lost to Free, it was world champion, so it wasn't too big of a deal, but it could have been better, as him and Renru are the only leaders in the C tier to be of a big group of some kind, besides another one which I'll get to later, as they are part of the Big Five pre the end of Season 2. After that, we have Joe. Joe is a decent blader as well, although his matches always come down to luck. He's able to defeat Armin, but also tie with Win, which is interesting, but he loses to Dante very easily. He does lose to Gwyn right after his second battle, though. His first battle, I mean. But yes. After that, we have Loden. Loden only has 4 matches, and that was very early in the show, in Season 4. He loses to Dante only, but he beats Fumiya and the other NPC Bladers before him. After that, we have Pain. Pain is a decent blader as well, the top of C tier. However, his only wins are against Armin, but he loses to everyone else, being Dante and Delta. And he cannot even unlock any sort of hyperflux of any sort when you compare it to the other 2 Risen 3 bladers, as one can do Dark Turbo and Delta can do Gold Turbo. Now, coming in at the bottom of B tier, we have the better bladers. We have Boa, the last of B tier. He is decent, however, his only actual win is against Renru and Cruiser. Cruiser is skipped over a lot, which is surprising for a main character of the season, but his match against Renru was pretty good, as I was not expecting him to beat him straight away for his first match. After that, we have Kurt. Kurt's also pretty strong, as he was previously a world champion at one point. However, after he disappeared for a while, he came back and he dominated the International Players Cup. He beats Volt, Boa, and Norman. He was able to sort of fight with Shu. However, it wasn't enough, as Shu outplayed him using his brains. After that, we have Fubuki. Fubuki is also pretty strong. He has a lot of matches in this season in Turbo. He's able to get back on Suo. He's able to beat Iga in his first match with him, as Iga had around 100 wins before Fubuki in 2 episodes. And he also beat Laban in a tag battle with Iga. He also lost to him straight away though in the next match after that, as it was unlucky considering he was up against 2 Turbo 4 members despite having the complete time advantage. Now, after Fubuki, we have Suo. Suo is a little bit better only because he was able to beat Toko pretty quickly, and he's able to win in Battle Royales, as it shows. He beat Iga and he beat Heijin in one match. He doesn't have too many feats besides that, but he is a pretty good player still, as he was able to make it to the finals of the Lorna Cup, and he almost beat Iga, I reckon. Now, after that, we have Laban, one of the top 4 members. Although the weakest, he's no pushover. He only wins in group battles, not one-on-ones, as he beat Iga and Suo in one match, and he beat Fubuki and Xavier in one match. That is interesting to me. However, he loses to Fi, Xavier, and Iga pretty easily in that match. In those 3 matches, especially when it came to pure power with Fi. Now, after that, we have Xavier. Xavier is an interesting one because he was mentored by Xander, but he does have a lot of power, as it took a lot of bladers to beat him. His only actual losses, I believe, are Fi and Iga. I do believe he could beat everyone else below him, though. If we have a look at his matches, they are: he beats Heijin, Lawan, Iga, and Iga again with Renjiro in a battle royale, but loses to Fi, and then he wins against Renjiro and Suo with Kyle and Renjiro. And that's due to teamwork. However, he loses the rest of his matches except for Iga later in the show to train for Fi. After that, we have Bishara. Bishara is also not the best waiter. He does have a few wins under his belt, but they're really only against Bell. And I guess, who am I missing? Bell and Ranzo. He's not that impressive, but DB had a small cast of characters, so there is a lot of competition for him, and he's just unlucky considering he was one of the worst newer characters. Next we have Ranzo, surprisingly. He does have wins over some bladers, but it's just barely. He sort of has one by luck, considering some bladers have just quit their matches by forfeiting, looking at you, Dante, in Season 7. But yes, he does have some wins, a little bit. He also does have a win with Volt Aoi and against the Twins, but that's about his only best feat. After that, we have Ilya Mao. Ilya is interesting to me as well. Although Belle, who's the MC of Season 6, never beat her, she does have wins. She was able to beat 4 Bladers in a Battle Royale in the very first match. However, after that she falls off quite a bit. Although she sort of challenges Louis, it's not enough, as she never gets to get back against him, and loses to Felix as well pretty badly, and Rashad. Now, after that, we have Akira. Akira also doesn't have many wins, however, he was good enough to make it to nationals, as he was able to challenge Zack pretty well, as he was the second beta or third to burst him. However, it took to the third match of that battle. And right above Akira, we have Zack. As he's a Supreme Four member, although he's the weakest considering how Ladies of Burst is Bay. However, he is a pretty strong player, as it took Volt to get to Luck to win his match against him. But he also did beat Volt as well early in the season. Not once but twice, and it was also due to luck. However, he does also almost lose to Gabe. If Gainon didn't implode on itself, it only happened once, then Zack would have lost that match. Now, after that, we have Daigo. He almost beat Joshua. He was just unlucky, but I reckon if he won, he would have gone to the International Players Cup. However, because of the writing, it does make sense. But I do think he could go his get back right after the World League, before the International Players Cup. But that is his biggest feat. After that, we have Hyde. Hyde's only wins are against Iger. However, he does put a pretty good fight against Volt and Fire until his bay gets broken. Now, coming in at the bottom of A tier, we have Ken. Ken's a pretty strong blader, as he progresses a lot. He was able to tie Xander pretty early in the show, and then he also faces Louis towards the end, and he was the first blader to not get bursts, as it was a surviving finish until it burst after. And he made it to the top 8. Now, after Ken, we have Kit. Kit is also pretty strong. He was able to challenge Bell pretty well, and Free and Ranzo in Season 7, and Volt in Season 3. However, he never really burst anyone besides Pre in Season 7, and his only win in Season 3 is against Aya, and that was because of the impeccable defense and stamina he has. Nobody can do that besides his. Now, after Kit, we have Felix. Felix can definitely put up a fight against most players, especially in Season 6, as the way he battled Rashad was very smart, as I was not expecting that from him. But his only actual win is Bell. Besides that, it's just loss after loss. And it was just to write him off to give some substance to the plot before the finale. After Felix, we have Walker. Walker's a pretty strong blader. He was able to sort of challenge Shu in Season 1, which led to him cracking his bay. Then in Season 2, he was able to push Zen to his limit and almost beat him. However, Zen just had the upper hand, considering he was in the Big 5 as well. But besides that, Walker doesn't really have any feats. Until Season 5, which he challenged Iger, Renjiro, the Twins, and Dante in a 3v1, and he dominated the majority of the matches until the last one. After Walker, we have Gabe. Gabe used to be a Supreme 4 member, I'm pretty sure, before Louis came in, and he was pretty strong. He made it top 16, and he would work flawlessly. He almost beat Zack due to him is being imploding on himself, but that is really it. But it does beat Orochi and Daigo barely. After Gabe, we have Xander, top of A tier. Xander has enough feats. His only loss in Season 1 is against Volt, and that's his last match. In Season 2, he beat Silas, until Silas beats him. And ever since Volt beat him in the second match in season 2, he kept losing the entire time until he beat Renru and Joshua in the International Players Cup. Now coming in at the bottom of S tier, we have Silas. I know, crazy. This is due to him barely having the edge below Renjiro in that stamina battle in season 5. However, he is able to challenge a lot of legends. He was able to put up a fight against Louis with defense and free, although it's not enough to beat him on his own. After Silas, we actually no, hang on a sec. Silas also beat 3 of the 5 members in season 2, which is why he's a legend in season 5. Now, Renjiro, a little bit harder, but he does have some face in season 5. He was able to use Aya and his teamwork to defeat Rentaro and Volt, and also Free and Silas. And the way they played it was very smart. Now, after that, we have Rentaro. Rentaro is pretty strong. He has wins in season 1 against Volt, and then season 2, he beats Clone. He's got his get back. Season 5, he doesn't have too many wins, as he does come off in Legend Festival. However, he's able to sort of challenge some players here and there, Silas being one of them, and be able to keep up with Volt in terms of speed. After Rentaro, we have Arthur. Arthur's a pretty strong blader. He's able to beat Iger, who was world champion in season 4, as he just dominated his bay with not free spinning, infinity lock apocalypse, and is able to still dominate in a match with Delta and Dante. Although interrupted, he still beat them. And he also broke 2 different bays then. Now after that, we have Armen. Armen's a strong blader. He was the first to beat Arthur with the Genesis armor on Apocalypse, and he was able to use Gold Turbo in comparison to Arthur using Dark Turbo. After Armen, we have Dante. Now, Dante's the weakest MC, as he's the only blader to never beat his best rival in Delta, known in score point. However, he does use power-ups a lot to defeat a lot of legends. However, it's very smart in the way he does it. Now, Delta is right after Dante. He's pretty smart and he's pretty strong. His only actual loss is Arthur and Gwyn in season 4. However, it all just comes down to teamwork, as he reluctantly didn't really want to work with anyone in season 4. After Delta, we have Gwyn. Gwyn is a strong blader. He kept winning, and it took a whole team to beat him, as he needed something called Rainbow Turbo, which is only introduced in finale. And he created his own bay and won in his very first match against Joe. After that, we have Rashad. Rashad's a pretty strong player. Although he's the antagonist, he does lose a little bit, but it's still very early in the show. And he does win against Volt, so he can win against Legends. However, it does take a while for him to get beat. After that, we have Bell. He loses to Rashad quite a bit. However, it's not enough for him to be any higher, as he loses to Iger. He never really beats Volt. He beats him once out of the amount of matches they have. And yeah, he uses a lot of upgrades. Next is Iger. Iger has a lot of play experience, as he was always training in the prior seasons of season 3, and he became world champion. And he beat his home 4 members as well, and put up a very good fight against Delta before getting dropped in. And he also beat Free eventually with Silas and Minjiro. And he also defeated Volt again, which is smart. Now after that we have Louis. Iga has never beaten Louis, besides that match in Season 3, which Louis does get back on. Now, after Louis, we have Free, as he's one of the stronger bladers as well, as he made the top 3 in International Players Cup, and he had to leave the team of BT Seoul because of the burden he had. Now, he's one of the strong bladers because he made it to Big 5 and became a world champion and was first to defeat Louis, as he was able to get back as well on him. And he beat Volt a few times and Shu at one point as well, until Season 3 and 5, which they don't medal again until Season 5. However, Free is one of the strongest bladers, as he's able to defeat all the Big 5 in the International Players Cup. He was able to challenge Fi to an extent, although Fi was just a stronger opponent due to his gimmick. And yeah, Free's made a name for himself. Now, after that is Hyuga. He's the stronger blader due to him having more speed and power and being able to make it to Legend Festival top 3. And he was very close to being Volt then. However, it took a lot of teamwork to defeat him in Season 5 towards the end, as he and Volt were major rivals. And he and Hikaru beat countless legends in Season 5, especially against their match with Lane and Shu. It took a lot of teamwork, especially when those two weren't working together at some points. However, in Season 7, they do lose a bit, or Hugo does anyway, against Spell, as he cannot battle. He does the same thing, sort of, with spamming the same moves, but it's still enough to have him be recognized as a legend. Now, Karu is more of a smarter character of the twins, as he's able to not necessarily overpower, but outsmart other bladers, as he uses strategy a lot. Although some iconic moments is his losses to Louis and Dante, although he able to get back against them with Hyuga. And he also is able to defeat Volt and Rentaro and other legends in Season 5, although he does lose to Pri at one point. Now, in Season 7, Pri is above Hikaru, as she is able to defeat a lot of MCs and even get points off of legends, like Xander. However, she is weaker than the rest that come after her, as she is lost to at least two of them. But she's still pretty strong, especially she beat Kit and Renzo to get into the Lodestar tournament towards the end, which, mind you, one of them was a legend, so she's made a name for herself there, and she was able to almost beat Volt. Up next, we have Pax. He had an interesting debut with his Bay. He defeated Volt and Igar in his first few matches, and they were also world champions at one point. He was able to challenge Bell pretty well, especially when it was at Bell's highest point of power. And yeah, he has established himself as a legend. Now Volt is next, as he cannot beat Lane, not on a one-on-one at least. He needs to surprise him. However, he's been countless other legends, like Free, Shu, at one point, and he's been able to eventually overpower them, whether it's for teamwork or not. So he's definitely up there. Now, after that is Lane. Lane is interesting. He is a champion of Legend Festival. However, that is because he played by himself for a lot of the tournament. Enough does to count, as he is able to make a name for himself, and he was able to defeat all the legends except for Volt and Taro in that tag battle. One of the best battles ever. If he wasn't taken by surprise, he would have won with Shu. Now, after Lane is Shu. Although Lane did get back on Shu, Shu dominated him as Lane had the barrier at the time, and he was the first player to actually get a win against him besides Aiga due to luck. As he used proper skill and he was in supreme form, remember at one point defeating players like Volt and Louis and Free. And in season 3, he was the second player to get Breath and Fire. He also defeated many different bladers in season 1 and season 2 when he became Red Eye. And he made it to the International Bladers Cup until he lost to Volt for the first time in season 2. And then above Shu we have Fire. He's been able to destroy countless bays, which is the most, and they were all a legend of some sort. He's been able to defeat legends. He can definitely defeat Volt, as Volt cannot handle the armor, which is shown for Felix, as I don't think he could outspeed Fire in that respect, especially when we've seen Fire dominate against other attack types like Excalius and Leopard. And yeah, he uses a lot of strategy to defeat his bladers. So yes, that is the rest of the video, and thank you for watching. I hope to see you in the next ones. Peace out.